be. So we're an international group, so we'll be speaking in English, so I apologize for that in advance. The name of our project is Remuse, and while I'm explaining the project, Maria will be performing a kind of live visualization of how it might work. So I'd invite you all to have a quick look at how this looks now, this exhibited piece, and in a few minutes we'll have a closer look at it. It's worth mentioning very quickly that we created this prototype directly in response to the Design Museum here in Barcelona because we identified it as an institution that we think exemplifies the kind of experience that is somehow not connecting with our current generation. So that is why here there is a focus on furniture. So talking about display cases. Display cases are native to museums, and they're structurally simple objects that have these symbolic connotations that are sometimes perhaps overlooked because of their subtlety. Most of the time they're used for security services to avoid robbery or to protect pieces of work from chemicals in the air. But something else that's interesting which happens is by placing something within one of these display cases, you're suggesting to the viewer that what's inside has a heightened value. So before the viewer has had the time to closely observe an object, their perception has already been slightly modified. So for this purpose, they're very interesting objects because by intention they're meant to be invisible, but in reality they're immediately totally recognizable. So it's a little bit like the relationship between a piece of art and the frame it's been put in, is that over the years the two objects become in a way intertwined. So in a sense, what we're doing is we're proposing a kind of radical twist to the conventional use of these display cases. In our design intervention, we would have exhibited objects that are placed in these transparent vessels. We would then invite the client, the goer of this museum, to approach and be able to draw directly onto this surface, and from his or her perspective, they'd be able to use the object itself as a point of reference, for the drawing. And moreover, depending on the exhibition, they'd be given a sort of stimulus to guide them through this process. And that could range from words as simple as reinterpret, review, to make them feel they can draw freely. But depending on the exhibition, this could become more of a concrete stimulus. For example, here we have a collection of chairs where there might be a sentence so much as how many ways to sit on a chair. And from there, we think you could end up with intriguing results where you'd have a kind of a collection of how people have imagined you can use this object. And in this case, where you're given total creative freedom to draw, to add lines, to add color, you're effectively making an entirely new hypothetical object. At the heart of this concept is the idea of creating a unique and close connection between the viewer, between the goer of the museum and the museum piece. So throughout this project, we've had three main objectives that have been at the core throughout. One is we wanted to challenge the traditional structure of a museum visit, where we identified certain etiquettes that in a way alienate our generation. Things like not being able to take photos, by having to remain silent during an exhibition, and also the physical space that is sometimes put between us and the objects by things like barriers and objects like these display cases. And we think Remuse, in a sense, bridges that gap. In another way, we wanted to elevate the physical state of the museum goer. So I think we can all relate to feelings of being overcome by boredom and tiredness sometimes when leaving a museum. And we believe we would like to avoid that danger by simply making a museum visit an active event as opposed to a passive occurrence. And finally, and most importantly, we want to give the viewer an opportunity to respond creatively to the exhibition that they have gone to see. So really our project centers around this invitation to engage intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, with an object by, in a sense, being invited to redesign it. There's this psychological study that we have continually referenced throughout this project, where there was a group of adults and a group of children given the same object and asked to come up with as many uses for that object as possible. And they found, and at the end, the adults came up with an average of 5 and the children with over 100. And you can take from that, you can take conclusions from that yourself, but we like it as an anecdote for our narrative, because what we're doing is a similar sense of a similar creative exercise. One important question is how we're going to arrive, how does this project reach our desired audience? And we believe that we achieve that through the ability to share your designs. So what we're proposing is that after completing your little drawing, you'd be able to take a picture, and that picture would be sent to an interactive platform curated by the museum and projected on a larger scale. And we think this could be quite a powerful moment for you, regardless of your artistic ability, to be able to see like your spontaneous creation exhibited amongst these renowned works. And at the same time, you would be able to rub off your creation. So immediately after doing it and taking a photo, it could be wiped off, leaving a blank slate, the same blank slate for everyone to start, and for people who maybe aren't interested in participating to enjoy an exhibition in its most traditional sense. It works both on a 2-dimensional level and a 3-dimensional level, so in that sense we think it could be easily scalable, this project. And just to finish, we'd like to show one final potential use of this, which would be to do small collaborations with contemporary artists. So we think it could be quite compelling to ask artists to come and reinterpret age-old, renowned art pieces. We have an example here from our local artist, Power, who has done these 2 beautiful creations. So in conclusion, Remuse is a concept that would incubate a kind of closer connection between the public and the museum. So it's a versatile project that in a way makes artistic expression available to and accessible to the masses in a focused space like this one in exhibition spaces. I think that's it. And if you want to come and have a look at these from a certain angle and what we're doing.
If you want to paint some more on this, you can go ahead and paint freely.
Hey boy.